Welcome to Kickback. My name is Ben Strasser, and today we are presented by CMHA, Brant, Haldeman, Norfolk, and we are at Hudson Public, downtown Brantford, and I'm incredibly happy and thrilled to have Lizzie, my friend, come on to share your recent journey with grief. And I just want to say that I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey with grief. It's something that has become incredibly close to my heart over the last 2 or 3 years. And so I just want to preface all of this with just a big hug. And I just really appreciate you coming to share your story with the loss of your dad.
Well, thanks so much, Ben, because I just know how important it is going through so many other types of losses, like when we went through miscarriage and infertility, how important it was to talk about it and to share our story so other people can find it. And when they do, it makes an impact on their life. So the stories that over the years of Kickback that have impacted people, it's immeasurable. And I only know that because people have shared that my story has impacted them before. And I was really looking forward to coming and sharing his story, my story of grief with my losing my dad, to hopefully impact other people I know that they're in this journey, or when they are in this journey, that they're not alone.
Right. Can you share about what the early days after your dad had passed, what maybe some of the unexpected feelings that you navigated during that time?
Well, the whole thing was unexpected.
Right.
So my dad was only 67. And it was the Thursday before Easter, and John and I just got home from lunch, and I remember telling him, like, the world feels so heavy, and then my phone rang. And it was my mom saying that my dad had a heart attack, and she's on her way to the hospital in Kitchener. And I had asked a couple questions. I hung up that phone, and I looked at my husband and said, so my dad is dead. And he's like, what? He's like, he's had a heart attack. I know in my heart that he is gone. Because all this heaviness that I had felt just vanished. So, and it was so unexpected because he was 67, he was working with my brother still, like semi-retired, had plans to travel with my mom, and we lost him a lot sooner than any one of us would have ever thought. This guy had 9 lives. We thought that he was gonna live to be 100, beat all the odds, so it was very unexpected. So the journey of grief was very shocking, right? It was very numbing and quiet, because you're in this stillness. And it's only your world that you're in this stillness, because the world keeps moving, even when you are grieving, and your world has stopped. So that's really what it felt like. And at the same time, because of all my other journeys with grief, being a NICU mom, seeing my child struggle to live, right, until he had surgery, I knew that there is another side to this, and our grief is going to grow, and that there's still joy to be found in life, because there's this book called The Book of Joy, and it's with the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. I don't know if you've ever read it.
No, I haven't.
If not, put it on your bucket list to read. And they talked about how joy and grief can walk hand in hand, and that you can't give up one because of the other.
And I think that's such a beautiful visual, and grief is something where it's a big thing, but it also often shows up in the little things.
Yeah.
And they kind of continue to show up for a very long time as you navigate life, because it's the loss of them in maybe the phone calls, or it's the loss in something that maybe a mutual thing that you enjoyed, and you see something and you're like, that's something. And then like I lost my uncle about 2 years ago now, and he was very important to me, and there's so many times still that things pop up, and I almost want to give him a call, and it's like, oh right, that's not possible, right? And I think the grief journey is an ever evolving one that you continue to navigate it, and it just kind of continues to unfurl.
It's like every time I get a Canadian Tire flyer, because that's where my dad loved to shop, 7 a.m. on a Saturday, you would have been there for the deals. So it was a long time, just getting the Canadian Tire flyer, I was like, making me cry. Right? Yeah. So, and then my dad was also a bricklayer, so sometimes we go by buildings, and I'm like, I knew he built that.
Right.
Like we were at Farm Boy, I'm like, I know he did the block work here, and Jack knows. And so sometimes those moments get really hard, and I have to balance raising my child who has missed his papa and also my own grief in these moments, right? But now we go to Farm Boy and we'll enjoy being there, and my son's like, oh, Papa helped build this place. So it makes it a little bit special too, right? Because our grief has now grown around our life, so we're not deep in that stillness and that really heavy part of grief.
Was there anything that you weren't ready for with the grief? I know it was unexpected, but having navigated grief, did it show up in any ways that you weren't quite prepared for that way?
I think it was just the diversity of how grief was showing up for everyone around me, and my sister-in-law Becky, and she's been part of our family for I don't know, like 20 years, and so she was close with my family and my dad, same, and so when everyone was showing up in different ways, either angry or mad or this or that, and she just looked at me and said, we are all just trying to navigate this life for the very first time without your dad.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it, and this is how everyone's going to show up, and it's not going to look how you expect it to look, and it's going to be different from my own journey. So I always just keep that in the back of my mind when I'm doing something new or a new experience, is like it's the first time we're all sort of navigating this the first time.
Right.
Especially in those hard moments. So that message to me was so important, and I really needed to hear that, and I continue to hear that when I need to.
Right, and how important was that message and like the community that surrounded you?
Community was huge. So they didn't just show up for me, because I know in that moment, like I was like trying to support my family, because my brother was there when it happened, my mom, and those who arrived at the hospital. So just trying to support them and just being very mindful of everyone's position and where they are to like the grief. So trying to be very mindful. So I asked and my community showed up. And so I'd love to share.
Yeah,
so,
please do.
People sent us books. So my friend Missy brought me this book called The Dragonfly Story, and it's about death and explaining the concept of death to children in terms that they can understand. Available at the library, you can YouTube videos it. So it can be a really good way to explain to children. And then my cousin Jennifer sent me this book called The Invisible String, about how grief and people who are not here physically with us, we're also connected by these invisible strings, and how they tug at our hearts and our memories. So these are great resources. And then I was very fortunate that I have a lovely friend who made memory bears for my nephews, and a pillow for my mom, and also ornaments, one of my dad's shirts. And she showed up that way. I'm not giving a name because it's something that she does very personally. And just showing up that way to be like, this is very important. This sucks. It sucks being part of the Dead Dad Club. And here we're here to support you. So, and if you can't find community, you can ask for it. People usually want to help, right? And if you need to talk to somebody, sometimes funeral homes will have a grief hotline. I know Stedman Hospice has grief support. But if you're not sure, like no matter where you're watching from in Ontario, you can call 211 and ask for your local grief support line.
And I think that it's natural to grieve. And it's in everything that I've had as far as conversations around this and been instructed, it's important to feel all of it and not shove it in. And to feel it all and to let it all out and make sure that people understand that you're struggling, and that taking time for yourself in that moment is not a selfish thing. It's something that is needed and required so that you can find your new way to navigate life with that person that is no longer there.
It's so important to hold space for people and yourself. And often grief comes very much like, oh, hi, I'm here. We're going to cry. We're going to have the feelings. And when you're in places like in my work and my community, when I'm having those moments of grief, people just hold that space, because most people understand grief, whether they've lost a parent, another family member, a friend, and that grief just creeps up. But that just means there was lots of love, right? And those people are missed. And one moment where I felt ridiculous was at a festival, and we were there, and Jack's going out to the vendors and winning prizes, and it's a beautiful sunny summer day, and he goes up, and it's the Trillium's Gift of Life, and he spins the wheel, and it lands on about tissue donors. And I just break down crying because after my dad passed, we chose for him to be a tissue donor, which I didn't know. After you died, if your organs aren't usable, you can donate tissue, so your bone, your eyes, your skin, to help people, up to 75 lives. And that was the quiz question that had come up that he had spun, and I just broke down. Crying. And this woman behind the table, I'm like, I don't know who this stranger is. And she just came around the table and held space and let me cry into her shoulder for probably 5 minutes, this complete stranger, because she understood that like I was grieving, and that it's also something very beautiful that somewhere, even after his death, he's helped others, right? Yeah. So this complete stranger, and she had texted after and checked on me, and I thought that was really mindful and lovely of her. So when grief shows up to other people in my life, I try to hold that space like other people have showed me. Right.
I think that's such a great point to bring up, is just to make space. If somebody's struggling, make space for them, check in on them. It's just hard. it's just really shitty navigating all of those things, right?
I don't know if it's really shitty, because you have two choices in life, Ben. You either, well, you live and you die. Like death is going to happen, right? But we live in this culture like where people don't talk about death. Right? Or, you know, oh, it's going to bring up emotions, so don't talk about them, versus in our household, we've taken time to make sure we talk about those who aren't here anymore. Right? So, yeah, it's shitty, but like, at the end of the day, like, that means that they were loved, and you had a great you had a relationship with them, right? Not everybody has, but.
Like, everybody experiences it differently, too, right? Whether you are navigating it, depends on how you entered into the conversation and what your relationship was with the person.
Yeah, and there's people who have parents and they grieve their parents and they haven't passed because the relationship is broken down, right? So grief with parents isn't always going to be just because they've died. And even when they have died, if you never really, like, it gets complicated, it's messy. It is messy. Have you seen The Assembly on CBC?
No.
Oh, you should watch that.
Okay.
There's this moment, I don't know who the actor is, but he's Irish, I think. Anyways, he talks about that, how it's complicated.
It's very complicated.
Relationships with parents are complicated.
The concept of us as millennials, and growing and aging with our parents are getting older, grandparents are getting older, parents are getting older, and if we haven't already lost someone, it's very likely that we're going to in the near future. And just, it's interesting to become older and to start to see the people around you get older. And I'll never forget the moment that my uncle passed. He passed not too long after his 50th birthday. And it was like all of a sudden he passed, and everybody else all of a sudden was much older than what I remembered them. And it was like this veil had been taken off, and all of a sudden I was seeing I was seeing them for their actual age, instead of that veil of not like youthful.
But they're going to be
like,
here forever?
Yeah, I think so, right? And like he was the first person that I really lost in that space. And so all of a sudden it's like all of the parents have aged and grandparents are older, and how much longer you have with these people? And it's just interesting that as a collective, these are all things that we're now navigating, but there's no real training, or grief is something that's so like been for so long, it's been like, no, we don't do that in public, right? Like that's not something that happens. And I think it's important for it to be more public facing and have more conversations around it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, it shows up in like small moments, right? It's going to be like a song coming on the radio, or I mean, we're filming this in the holiday season, so for a lot of people, it's like not a great time of year. They can't find that joy yet, and that's okay. Or maybe they never will, and they'll just use this season as a way to mourn and grieve and whatever feels right for them, because that's how you have to do. You have to do what's best for you. So that grief just shows up, and it's not linear, and you have to grow your life around grief, and you have to find those moments of glimmer. So I don't know if you've heard that phrase, like where the world can be really dark and everything can be really heavy, but you see that glimmer of hope, that glimmer of light. And there was this, in university, I had a friend who unfortunately passed away from a brain tumor, and we went to her celebration of life, and her husband, very young, I mean, she died after her child had been born, right? So he was a widower, to a young child, like a toddler, and I didn't know what to say to him. And I was like, this just really sucks, and no one deserved this. And he just said the day she died was the most difficult day, and everything grows around that. Like, that's the hardest day.
Right.
Every other day you're making decisions and you're weeding through all the grief, but every day it gets a little bit brighter, even if you do not notice for a year.
Right.
Even if you don't notice for months, right? But the light does come back into your life when you choose, and sometimes you have to make a choice to do that, right?
For sure.
To say, like, I need to continue to live and find the joy and find those glimmers. And that's something my mom said to me. She had said, your father loved life so much, he'd be devastated if you stopped living. So I sort of took that and I said, I'm going to live then, because now I know life is much shorter than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
And so I think my siblings and I and my husband and my son are just embracing life. And so we go on adventures. We make time to do that. I'm like, oh, if the dishes don't get washed till tomorrow, oh well. Like, we're going to go outside and look at the northern lights. And we're going to go to the theater. And we're going to go and connect with our friends and do those things. So you have to be purposeful, but also just know that, like, life is short.
Right.
So what would you want to do if you didn't have much time left?
Yeah.
Right? And it's really those moments of, like, spending time with people. That's what I have found. And again, I learned that from reading a book. I love reading. Have you ever read Tuesdays with Maury?
No, I don't do a whole lot of reading.
Oh my goodness.
Lizzie.
So Mitch Albom wrote this book about his professor who got diagnosed with ALS. And it was about his journey of dying, right? And the things he missed the most are not the big grandiose things. It was going for a walk after or dinner with his wife and go by, like, a tree with flowers on it and smelling the flowers, right? He couldn't do those things anymore. So it's embracing those everyday things that bring us joy and being purposeful in doing those things and bringing people along with you.
Right. I think that's beautiful, and I think it's so special how you are, how you've navigated the last 2 years with your husband and then also your son. And just the joyful approach that I think is infectious around you and your family. And I think it's beautiful to know a part of where that's coming from, and just the message of making sure that you do enjoy life is so important.
Yeah, and not be afraid to talk about death either, right? Because it will come to all of us, right? And I think it's also just being aware of, like, that it can happen at any time and how to navigate those circumstances, but also realizing that people have different beliefs. Like, Jack at one point just thought everyone comes back as, like, a blue spirit.
Right, yeah.
And also, like, you know, his opinion has changed over time, or he just wants to give my dad a hug, and we have to be very honest about, like, well, we can't do that, but you know what, you have your memory bear, you can go hug, you can talk out to the stars, and maybe he'll hear you. And often I'm like, if you look for the symbols of those who've passed, maybe trying to communicate with you, whatever your belief is, maybe you'll find that. And so just trying to be open and not necessarily positive, but I find that joy right about those things, and sometimes, like, reminiscing about those things that brought me joy with my dad's relationship, like taking Jack on adventures. So we went to, like, the East Coast this summer. And we went to a beach knowing my dad had been there and had said, oh, Jack would love coming here. So we stood on that beach, and the sunset was so vibrant. My dad loves sunrises and sunsets, and it was just a very, like, full moment for our family to be on that beach. I'm like, Papa stood here too, like where you are. How awesome is that we get to come and do that together? So
that's special, right? It's finding those moments.
Yeah, and then just continue living your life, because, like, you can only go one way, right? We just have to keep on living, and it doesn't mean that you're not forgetting them, and everyone's memory works very differently, but it's like doing those things are very purposeful. So, you know, we still make the same meal that we would for Christmas morning with our son that my dad would make, right? Or Jack's favorite tradition is, like, oh, I really miss Papa. So we go get a donut, because my dad would always get him donuts. So those type of things, right? Like, and allow him to grieve and ask for the things that he needs in his journey. and to remember him. And, you know, sometimes I'll go to my dad's grave. Jack doesn't want to get on the car. I'm like, you don't have to. Right?
Yeah.
Or, oh, you want to buy flowers? Or
Yeah.
you want to buy a coffee for him? Like, then that's what we do, right? And allowing kids to share and express in ways that they feel like it's right for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that so often we are, like I specifically wasn't modeled. I think everybody just wasn't modeled how do you grieve, right? Like, what does that look like? And I think so many people put it in this box. So empowering Jack to be able to choose what that looks like will serve him well in the future in life, and I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, and he saw me being a mess. Like, that's another thing is like, for the first little while, like after we had to tell him that my dad had died, like that was awful, and it was messy.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be messy, and you're gonna show up imperfectly, and do it not the way that you hope that you have done it, and that's okay. It's good enough, and just knowing that. Don't hide your grief from your children, because then your children are like, did you care about this person if you aren't crying about them? Right. And there are times where Jack will be like, Mommy, tell me a story. I'm like, buddy, I don't have capacity.
Yeah.
I don't have the emotional capacity to tell you a story today.
Right.
But the one thing I do enjoy, which I think is very different from when I was a kid. So my grandfather, my dad's dad, passed away when I was 5. Jack was 5 when he lost my dad. Right. And the difference is that there's not a lot of photos of my grandfather. There are next to no videos of my grandfather. And I'm just like, I don't really remember what he sounds like. I couldn't tell you. But with my dad, we have this technology in our phones, right? And to take pictures and videos. So if he's like, I don't remember what Papa sounds like, I have videos of him.
Yeah.
And those sort of key memories. And even when Jack was very young and my dad was doing something with him, like on the swing and pushing him, he remembers that mostly because of those videos. But I think those memories for him will live on forever, and that's how he keeps the memory of my dad alive. Right? And maybe one day he'll be pushing his grandchild on a swing and remember, you know, doing that with my dad. So I feel like we have, so if you don't take pictures, take pictures. If you don't have videos, take more. Because when that person passes, the first thing you're going to be grasping for are those memories. And the wild thing about the day after my dad died, we're all downstairs in the basement, and my mom is just pulling out Rubbermaid container after Rubbermaid container of printed photos. Like 50 years of photos, maybe not 40 years of photos. And my cousins had come over, my uncles had come over, and we're just shifting through and we're going through all of them to get photos for, you know, the celebration of life. And I'm just like, oh, we don't do this anymore. It would be like digital, right? And so for me, that's like, I want to make photo books so that in the end, when I pass, what would make it easier for Jack, he just goes to the shelf with all the photo books and here you go. Because that gets really hard. Although sometimes you have to be busy doing something while you're in your grief process, right? So anyway, so that was this really amazing part. Like that's where some joy came in and some glimmers of hope in that moment with this room full of people that loved my dad and loved us, and we're in this like grief journey together, but we're laughing at the ridiculous outfits we wore in the 80s and 90s or these moments, right? So, you know, you find those glimmers, and those are some, when I go back and I look upon the funeral, because the funeral itself was very much a blur, those are the things that sort of remind me of like, oh yes, like that's what sort of fed me to get through that really hard time. And I don't know if that helped my family, but I know it helped me. And I also think that like at my dad's funeral, my mom got up and did the eulogy, and I'm so proud of her because I don't know how she did it without crying. And it wasn't until I stood up to read a poem that in that room, all I could think of is like, wow, this room is filled with people. It was packed. And it was so filled with so many people who loved my dad or appreciated him or loved us who showed up, that it just brought me so much joy in this moment that, you know, yes, I was just crying, but now I'm so full of joy from all this love in the room. And to me, that really filled my cup while I was navigating that journey. And so the rest of it was a bit of a blur, but that I sort of remember. And I think those are things when you're in that journey of grief is to remember. Yeah, I'm sure you had moments like that too.
Now I have there's two kind of like major losses. One was very quick, and then one was long and drawn out, and I don't wish upon either of them on anyone, and it's no one is better than the other, but it's all just incredibly hard. And there's moments, for sure, there's moments of the joy and the sharing the memories and being able to, with my uncle, it was very quick. Or not, sorry, it was very long. It was drawn out. He had cancer, and then I ended up in the hospice for 11 days. And so I was able to have conversations with him and thank him for all of the things and do reminisce and do all of that. Where with my Nana, it was very quick, much similar to your story with your dad. And there was just, it was just quick. And it's like, there's so much that you wanted to say, and navigating all of those things. It really came out in the people and the family that surround, much like you, and the community, where that love that she had or he had was the joy that you found in how everybody came together to be able to navigate all of the feelings that are involved with that, and how you move forward without that person here on earth anymore.
And that's another thing, is our relationship with the person who's gone. Again, maybe because I'm an adult and I have different perspective and lived experience, that those relationships still grow with you.
Right.
So sometimes it's in the moments of I was doing, some training, and all I could think was the last time I did this training, I went with my dad. And he'd be saying something under his breath to the instructor. It was just something, this memory of oh yeah, my dad would be so grumpy about this. And or sometimes how I react to things, when the Blue Jays were winning the World Series. I was oh yeah, I'm more like my dad than I thought I was. And so those things, your relationship with them still continue, and it changes. Right. But it's also just at his funeral, I was very grateful. So if you go to a funeral though in the future, I don't know how being in that lineup where people come in, and at my dad's funeral there were hundreds of people. I have no idea how they knew all of them, but those who said, hi, my name is, and this is how I knew, I really appreciated that, because I'm thanks for not putting the onus on me to try to tell my mom who you are, but you're just, because we're all in shock, right? And I thought this should be a practice that we share with others. When you go to a funeral, don't expect the people to know who you are, unless you're best of friends. Just reintroduce yourself and how you knew the deceased, because that way they don't have to think about it. And it might be I don't remember who that person was, now I feel bad. And so those type of things that I guess etiquette and knowledge, but if we talk about it more, then we can be more prepared too, right? So, because I really, and that I learned from my dad, all these people who oh, your dad just came and he helped me do something 6 months ago or 2 months ago, and I'm oh, he was a helper, a lot more than I think he ever told people. He just did. He was just a doer, right? Call my dad, I'm hey, I'm in premature labor, we're going to McMaster. He's I'm on my way, every time, right? Anytime that I needed him, he was there, right? And those are the things that I miss. Jack had to have emergency surgery last year, and the first person I wanted to call was my dad. Because, for other people to drive an hour, maybe not through the best conditions, or, they're nervous, not always to do. So those are the things that I miss, is he would have showed up, been there, would have sat there and argued with the doctors to hurry up and get him into surgery. Those are the things I miss. So then I have to be that voice. And then it comes down with me, and my husband looks at me and he's oh, well, just a little bit like your dad. But you need a spitfire sometimes, right?
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah, so that relationship just changes, but it still grows with you. So, and you have access to their memories, you have access to pictures and videos, and talking about those stories, and, giving yourself that space, when that memory pops up, or oh, this, they would have said this, or they would have been in this situation, this is what they would have done, right? And hold space for them.
And I think,
then they live with you, right?
Well, I think the best thing that you can do is actually speak up about it, because I know it's very easy to you know what, I don't want to upset this family member X, so I'm not going to bring this person up or this thing up in those moments. It's so important to share those moments and those thoughts and feelings. And I remember talking to during the Blue Jays run, and talking to my mom and my grandma about how much Uncle Ken would have enjoyed this and been a part of it, and would have been so excited about it. And it's just important to help continue that person's memory to live on for everybody too, right?
Yes. And it's also just respecting when people are just like, I don't have capacity for this, so also respect that as well. Because even though you have capacity, maybe one of my siblings doesn't.
Right.
Maybe my mom doesn't, and that's okay.
Right.
So we just move forward and move on.
Right.
Yeah.
Sweet.
But in our household, it's open book.
Yeah. It's a good way to approach life, right?
Yeah, it is.
Is there anything else that you wanted to share with the audience today?
I don't know, except for, I guess, I just want to thank, very publicly, those people who were there the day my dad passed. I often think about them, right? Especially people who are in the healthcare sector, your EMTs, your doctors, your nurses, who've cared for people who've passed suddenly or not suddenly. And I was just reminded last week when I was at First Aid and CPR how, 5% of people survive First Aid or CPR, right? And if you have an AED, it goes up a lot more, but you could do everything right, which they did with my dad, and he still didn't live, and that's okay. And how traumatizing it must have been for everybody, and I hope that they don't live with that heavy grief, because I do think about them often, thinking like, do they know that like, it's okay, like, you did everything right? Because until we're in those circumstances, right, everyone hopes for the best.
Right.
Sometimes it doesn't happen, but that's okay. And those people who, like Travis and Adam and my brother John, and who were there and did everything right, and the EMTs and the doctors and the nurses and the people who cleaned up and the people who helped with the Trillium's Gift of Life, I often think about them and just hope that they find peace that it's okay.
Right.
It's okay. You did your best, and that's okay. He wouldn't want you to be upset about that or live with that grief, and because sometimes we have to let grief go too, right? Sometimes like you did everything right, and it's okay to let that go.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Lizzie.
you.
I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your dad and your life with him, and how you've navigated the last 2 years without him here physically. And I just really appreciate you sharing that with the audience watching.